Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and this is the new MSI Prestige 14 EVO. So this time last year, I was sat at a hotel bar in Hawaii during Qualcomm's Tech Summit, I might add, so I was doing some work, but I was also reviewing the MSI Prestige 14. Now, as you can see, this year is a little bit different. It is currently raining outside on a very grey winter's day in the UK. No Hawaii vacation for Tom, sadly. But the good news is that I do have the brand new MSI Prestige 14 EVO with me here, the late 2020 model, and actually it's had a pretty big upgrade, although you wouldn't really know just by looking at it from the outside. Really, this is an internal hardware refresh, boasting one of Intel's shiny new 11th gen Tiger Lake i7 chips, which of course also comes with their much improved Xe graphics. We also get faster PCIe 4 storage, which is pretty impressive, plus a couple of new Thunderbolt 4 ports, a faster UHS 3 micro SD card reader, although I think full-size SD would have been more helpful. And altogether, the i7 chip with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 storage, it's a fairly impressive spec for the £1,200 asking price. Especially when you consider that the similarly spec'd Dell XPS 13, here's one I made earlier, will cost you the best part of £400 extra for the same kind of spec, 16 gigs, 512, and the i7. So arguably the MSI is actually quite good value for money. But that's not all, because this also has an extra little trick up its sleeve, or
the part we call the Prestige.
Sorry, I had to get that in there somewhere. But the i7-1185G7 we have in here is just one of 3 of the 11th gen chips that not only come with the new Xe graphics, but also the more powerful 12 to 28 watt TDP. Which means the i7 processor can scale, and actually in performance mode, running Cinebench, I measured a peak of 42.5 watts, with an average of 31 over the 10-minute test. And even more impressive is the similarly spec'd new Dell XPS 13, albeit with a slightly lower clocked version of the new i7, peaks at 36 and averages 21 in the same test, 30% less power than the i7 in the Prestige. And so a higher average TDP means better performance, and it can also sustain it for longer. Which I guess kind of makes this the Tiger Lake King. You see what I'm trying to do there? Which on the one hand, of course, means the battery can drain faster on the Prestige here, although that is only in performance mode that you get that scaling up of the chip's power. And also, of course, if you're using it plugged in, charging, then it doesn't really matter. But on the other hand, it means we can potentially get much better performance from this, even over similarly spec'd 11th gen laptops. So let's see if it makes a difference. And here's my Cinebench, Geekbench, and Tomb Raider benchmark results side by side with the Dell. In multi-core and gaming, the Prestige is clearly faster. Which puts this in a bit of a weird category. It's like a little bit faster than your typical 13-14-inch Ultrabook, but still not as fast as a normal sort of 15-inch laptop with Intel's H series 45-watt chips and maybe even a dedicated graphics card. So it's kind of on the edge of 2 different categories, but this still packs a punch. In Fortnite with high settings at 1080p, I'm averaging 43 FPS, definitely playable, albeit a bit jittery. The demanding Shadow of the Tomb Raider, same settings, scored 24 frames per second. And finally, in Rainbow Six Siege, we're looking at 74 FPS. So actually, if you drop to medium settings, generally speaking, you can get away with some moderate 1080p gaming on this. Not bad at all, given it's just using the integrated Xe graphics chip, which from my tests a few weeks back when I had a quick hands-on with this laptop, I measured to be about twice as fast as last year's laptops with 10th gen chips. And in my tests, it easily handled photo editing in Lightroom and even basic 4K video editing in Premiere Pro. So performance is impressive from this thing, but I have to say, just using it, I have noticed quite a few sort of slowdowns and stutters just in everyday use. Sometimes it's as smooth as butter, but then other times even just tapping the Windows button to bring up the search menu takes a second, maybe going into a Chrome tab just sort of pauses. It feels kind of like maybe the processor is just scaling up and down a lot, and so we're getting some inconsistent performance. I'm hoping that maybe software or driver updates will smooth things out though, because there's just a few too many hiccups than I would expect for this kind of laptop. Not only that though, but the extra boost in processor performance comes with a couple of compromises. Anything other than just the lightest of tasks like browsing the web or watching YouTube, and the fan will start to kick in and actually get annoyingly loud. Plus under load, it does get quite warm to the touch. I measured a peak surface temperature of 43 degrees Celsius. Battery life also isn't that impressive. I ran a YouTube battery test overnight with brightness set to 50% in battery saver mode and also using the Edge browser, and it managed just over 7 hours of video playback. And actually with a few Chrome tabs open and maybe a bit of Lightroom in the background, I'm getting maybe 4 to 5 hours generally. On the upside, it does charge pretty quickly. I managed to get 47% of my battery in just half an hour. Now here's a question for you guys. If I bring back my Dell XPS 13 again, honestly I'm not sponsored by Dell, I promise. I just think these are kind of like the standard go-to benchmark of Windows laptops currently. What do you think about 16:9 versus 16:10? Personally, I think the slightly taller aspect ratio on the new Dells and also laptops like the MacBook is much nicer to use. It feels less sort of claustrophobic, especially on a 13-inch screen or 14-inch on the case of the Prestige. So while this is obviously quite a bit bigger, I do wish that MSI would maybe transition to that 16:10, but let me know which you prefer in the comments below. So with the Prestige, we're getting a 14-inch matte 1080p non-touch display, and overall it's a pretty good screen. Color accuracy is decent, hitting 99% sRGB, 77 Adobe RGB, and 78 DCI-P3. But it is definitely lacking in the brightness department. I measured a below average 280 nits peak, and it doesn't support any kind of HDR. In terms of design, well, not much has really changed from last year, except for MSI's new logo here. This is I forget the exact name of the color, but it's basically like a gray, like a slate gray, with this quite nice blue little glossy accent around the edge on the outside and also around the trackpad. As you can see, famous for the Prestige series, as we open the lid up, the keyboard also lifts up by up to 5 degrees, which gives you a slightly more comfortable typing position. I do quite like it, and also of course better airflow. If you look at the bottom here, we've got this big air vent for the fans, so that obviously helps to try and keep it cool while you're using that more powerful chip. We get quite nice thin bezels around the 3 edges here, although quite a big chin at the bottom, although that's slightly obscured by the keyboard as it rises up. The keyboard itself is backlit, it's nicely spaced out, and we get good travel with the keys. I like it, and the extra wide precision touchpad is responsive, although the click is a little bit inconsistent. It's harder to press higher up on the touchpad, and at the bottom in the corners, it's a little too easy to press in and feels like you can almost get your fingers under the edge of it. It's all fine, but just not exactly premium. We do get a fingerprint reader though, although it's not built into the power button or anything. Plus there's an IR camera next to the webcam for face unlocking. The whole thing is impressively lightweight though, for its size. It's about 1.29 kilograms. I say about, I looked at the spec before I filmed this. 1.29 kilograms, which is 2.84 pounds, I believe. So it is nice and compact. You won't really feel this putting it in your backpack or your suitcase. It's a pretty compact machine, especially given the specs of this as well. So it's a good travel companion, but I have to say the build quality just isn't up there with other premium laptops. The chassis feels a little bit cheap and squeaky in places, and when I plug it into charge, I notice a slight buzzing coming from the inside. None of which are a deal breaker, it just takes the sheen off a little bit. So the question is, should you buy the new MSI Prestige 14 EVO? The EVO name, by the way, kind of reflecting the Intel branding, which is built on Project Athena, you may have heard of from last year. Basically, EVO is a certain spec, a certain benchmark of laptop that comes with their latest chips, Thunderbolt support, Wi-Fi 6, quick wake, fast storage, those kind of things. And when you check enough of those boxes, then you can slap on this little Intel EVO logo down here. So the Prestige 14 is a good laptop, and for £1,200 I think it's decent value for money, but for my money I'd prefer a Dell XPS 13 or a MacBook Air M1. But as always, that's just me. But what about you guys? Would you be tempted to buy the Prestige 14? Do you like the look of it? Do you think the design and also that extra scalable CPU is sort of a selling point, or just like a whatever, if you want the extra performance, go for a 15-inch laptop anyway? Let me know what you make of this in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you guys next time right here on the Tech Chat.